from Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, I found it difficult to sleep last night thinking about this debate, and knowing that Baroness Lawrence is here today makes the debate, for me, very, very difficult. I want to thank the member for Eltham for highlighting all of the mistakes, corruption, some of which will be new to people that haven't heard about, and for the number of years that he has been working to try and secure justice. The murder of Stephen Lawrence was brutal, and he was murdered by white racist thugs. And I remember feeling quite sickened at that thought that a teenager who was just like me and my siblings, very similar background, was being murdered whilst he was waiting for a bus. And it made us feel in the community that if he wasn't safe, then none of us was safe. And I remember the years and still Baroness Lawrence and Neville Lawrence, their campaign to get justice for their son, Stephen. They fought a really hard campaign, even though they were fighting a system that was built on racism and white supremacy, and yet they still continued fighting. They were fighting not knowing that they were being spied on. They had full surveillance on them. They were being tracked by the police, just so the police could try and find something on the Lawrence family. Just imagine how clean and law-abiding the Lawrence family are for the police not to have found anything on them. And you know, if they had found something of them, it would have been in the papers, in the press, and they would have highlighted it, because that is how the establishment, and that's how institutional racism works, so that they could sow that seed of doubt. But there was no seed of doubt to be sown because they found nothing. Just imagine that the police were working so hard to discredit a black family grieving the loss of their eldest son, their brother. They worked harder trying to discredit a black family than they did trying to convict the murderers. One of which of the murderers, Dad was already in prison. They weren't the perfect family. These murderers were not the perfect family. They didn't come from the perfect family. They were known as the Crays of Eltham, and they revelled in that. But the police spent time trying to discredit Baroness Lawrence and her family. And every single time a new report comes out, or the police fails to act, or the IOPC fails to act, it traumatizes the Lawrence's family and the community, because justice delayed is justice denied. And I remember that moment in 1999, some 6 years after Stephen was murdered, the public inquiry which was launched by the Labour government, and it concluded with the publishing of the Macpherson report, as we've heard today from other honourable members. And the words institutionally racist were indelibly stamped on the public consciousness. But Stephen's tragic murder and the subsequent bungling of its investigation by the Met Police had revealed to the rest of the country that many of us already knew. And some of us had the misfortune to recognise it from first-hand experience. And that does include me and my brothers and my sister and my cousin. And I've just written a book, and I've journeyed back through lots of incidences that have happened in my life. And as I put them forward to go in the book, the publisher said, "Oh, that's enough now, Dawn, you need to stop." And then she came back and apologised, because she said, "I realise that's your lived experience." And I went to Elephant and Castle. I never told my parents that I was there, but I went to Elephant and Castle. And the thing is this, I went there, I travelled alone, didn't go with any friends, travelled alone, and I wanted to show my support to the Lawrence's family. And I also wanted to show the police that we were going to stand up to all the racism, and we weren't going to be scared. And we were told when we were standing there was a slope, and we were told when we were standing there to be calm and to be dignified, just like the Lawrence's family. And we were quite calm in the beginning. But when the murderers came out of the building, they had a swagger. They were cocky, and they were cocksure, and they were cocky because they knew they were protected. They were protected by the police, the Metropolitan Police. They were protected by the people that should have protected the innocent, all of us. These murderers were protected, and they knew it, and they showed it. And I didn't realize how I would feel on that day, but if I had eggs in my hand, I would have thrown those eggs and whatever else I had. Because having to witness that kind of arrogance and privilege that's undeserved is shocking and heartbreaking. It was absolutely palpable, and it was in the air, and that's why it kicked off. And as we stand here 30 years since Stephen's life was brutally taken, his memory and his legacy lives on through the work of the Stephen Lawrence Trust, through the work of the Lawrence family, and so does the continued and ongoing fight for justice for him and his family. We are in this place not for show. We're in this place to make society better. If we can't highlight what's wrong with society and get it changed, what's the point? 30 years later, the Casey report highlights that the Metropolitan Police is still institutionally racist. The current commissioner doesn't like that term. Well, I can tell you, I don't like the term, but I also don't like what it does. I don't like the effects of institutional racism. I don't like the consequences of that on the black community. I don't like that black people are discriminated more than any other group because of institutional racism. I don't like the fact that black people are 5 times more likely to die in police custody than their white counterparts. I don't like the fact that black people get convicted at a higher rate than their white counterparts for comparable offences. That's institutional racism. And if you can't name it, you can't fix it. And this government's determination to have this fake war and to say that there's no such thing as institutionally racist is a disgrace. And actually, the government's first job should be to protect its citizens, all citizens. And this government fails to do that time to time again. And let me be clear, it's a matter of national importance that our public institutions are held to account in order to meet and maintain the highest standards as to continue to be held in esteem. It's not just, well, that's the Metropolitan Police. Some people feel protected, some people are over-policed and under-protected and underserved. And the Lawrence's family, because they're such an exemplar family, but it has had its toll on the Lawrence family, but because they're so exemplar is why it is still continuing. Because they weren't able to shame them in any way, this is why it's still continuing. And the police talks about their reputation. To be honest, if the police was a bank account, they would be in severe deficit and in debt. Every interaction that the police has with somebody, with a citizen, because we police by consent. You either add to the bank account or you withdraw. And the Met Police are in debt. And my honourable friend said that maybe the Met Police should be dismantled. I think the work that needs to be done on the Met cannot be done by anybody who served in the Met. Cressida Dick was not a good commissioner. Mark Rowley is slowly losing my confidence. And I think that the work that needs to be done is so deep that actually it needs an independent person from outside who won't be scared by the threats that will be put on them by members of the police service that want to keep the status quo. And that's not to say that all police officers are corrupt or racist or homophobic or misogynistic. They're not, but the institution is. And if we want to make the police service better for the good police officers, we've got to change the institution. And we've also got to change all of the institutions that surround the justice system, and that's underpinned by it, because that includes the courts and that includes the IOPC. It is now patently evident that those tasked with carrying out a public duty of great importance and significance following Stephen's murder, as my honourable friend from Eltham has said, failed gravely to meet the standards of which anyone would have expected. And the years that have passed in no way dull the desire to delve deeper into what now seems the very murky culture that pervaded the Metropolitan Police at the time of Stephen's murder. What may have been considered as speculation during those early years of the investigation can now be classed as facts. So the times when people were saying that the Lawrences were being surveyed, they were saying that's not true. The times when people were saying that the police are being racist, we were told that's not true. Now we know it's all fact. And the catalogue of errors is a testament to the failed institution, resistant to well overdue reform. And there's so many errors, they're not errors. There's too many errors for it to be an error. It is institutional. And just imagine that, as we have heard, information about one of the key suspects was not followed up till 2 decades later, when he was dead. It's almost like somebody didn't want to offend the murderer or hold them to account. So they waited till they were dead before admitting that they were involved in the murder of Stephen Lawrence. It is an insult as it is offensive. And to think that nothing's going to be done about it, we can't allow that to happen, especially not in this place. And I want to end on just some words from Baroness Doreen Lawrence. And she said she's been lived, and in her unique, dignified way as well. It is incredible. And she said that she's been left bitterly disappointed by the fact that 4 former Metropolitan Police officers will not face charges of misconduct in public life over their handling of the initial 6 weeks of the 1993 investigation. One of the reports said that they were old. I don't care how old they are. They should stand trial and be accountable for what they did. They should not be living on a fat police pension. Not a single police officer lost his job or will lose his pension or pay a fine or spend a day behind bars, whilst I will continue to grieve the loss of my son. This CPS decision has caused me immense distress, and little thought has been given to me as a mother who has lost her son. This is a disgrace. Mr. Davis, justice delayed is justice denied. It's time that justice was delivered. Thank you.
Pete Osmore.